Welcome back, everybody. This is David Gordon. I'm here with my friend Max Douglas, and today we are going to be speaking to you about a big problem that is going on with the church right now. It's actually the problem of Catholic marriage preparation. It's so bad, so bad. And of course, the battle for marriage is really important because that's really the heart and soul of the battle for the family. So we really need to be out there and pounding this point home that you actually have to prepare properly for marriage. And the way the Catholic Church in most dioceses is doing that right now is failing a lot of people. Before we go on, though, please hit like and subscribe. You know, this channel is a new endeavor, and I want to start growing it, and that really counts. I'm counting on you to help me with that. By sharing it around, word of mouth. Please like and subscribe and comment on these videos if you like them. I know I kind of dropped off there for a few reasons, but now I'm going to be putting out content regularly, and I want to grow a Catholic community where we can do live streams and really interact and talk with one another. There's a gap there in Catholic world, so I want this to be more of a community than a channel. So please check back regularly for content, and once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're going to start going live a lot. With that said, Max, you are newly engaged. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's my understanding, sir, that you recently attended Catholic marriage preparation with your beloved. Would you say that was strong, quite strong, medium, a little weak? How would you characterize your experience at Catholic marriage prep?
It was well done, right? It was not a medium rare. It was the one good thing about COVID is that they took marriage prep and made it go remote. So it was basically all the dioceses, archdioceses where we're getting married required us was a 1 week retreat, weekend retreat. And so thankfully, thank God, we were able to do that online. And it was 5 hours of basic claptrap. We kept the camera off because it was we kept the Skype camera off because it was basically, here's Jesus died for your sins. No, Adam and Eve fell. Jesus came, died for your sins, and now you have a chance to, it was basically just Catechism 101. So yeah,
that sounds terrible.
If you could have just cracked open the Baltimore Catechism or basically any other catechism of the church and just read maybe the first 2 pages, and that would have been the equivalent of what the archdiocese seemingly wants for you to know about how to prepare for marriage.
Okay, so wait, let me just hold the phone. Let's step back for a second. So the Catholic Church sees, here's the logic, right? There's this problem. Well, we have 7 years of formation for priests, right? And they get 7 years of formation for their vocation. So what we really need to do, we're sending people off to get married without any training at all, with no formation for their upcoming vocation. So what we really need to do, we need to whip Catholics into shape and get them ready for marriage. And then what comes from that, like the natural end of that, according to many dioceses, is a 5 hour weekend retreat where they do basic catechism. Like, that's what they think. We have a 50% divorce rate, and people are going off. They have nothing in common, no common ground when it comes to an expectation of what the woman's role in marriage is, what the man's role in marriage is, how they're going to run a house, what they think of being open to life within the context of marriage, what they think about basic moral questions. But instead of dealing with that stuff, what we're going through is basic catechism. There's Jesus, and he died for your sins. We're doing that when we should be getting people ready for a sacrament. That is embarrassing, isn't it? That's what they came up with after all this. Well, we really need a robust system of formation of people before marriage. Okay. So there was this divine person named Jesus. That's where we're at? Most people get divorced. What a waste of time.
I know we'll talk about this later, but the NFP question is something that they have to include. Of those 5 hours, 20% or more of that time was spent talking about NFP, and you would just think from a business side of things, if let's just say the bishops and the powers that be in the chancery offices throughout the diocese in America, let's just say that they're evil men. But you would just think, even if they are evil men, the worst of the worst people, if they were equivalent to a CEO of GM or pick any Fortune 500 company, you say, well, we want more people to be Catholic because we want more people in the pews, and therefore we want more people giving us money, and we want more people going to our Catholic schools and more people. But they choose instead to spend 20% of that time shilling NFP, which we have disagreements about certain things about it, but the church teaches that you can use NFP in certain circumstances. But that being the case, it seemed odd to me that a huge portion of people who are in love with each other, ready to start a family, ready to procreate, they spend 20% of that time talking about, well, just in case you're not looking to procreate, here's how you do it within the Catholic context. I thought that was a little bit weird.
Here's how you avoid the chief fruit of marriage. Like, you're getting married, so what I wanted to tell you was how to avoid the chief blessing of marriage, because we know that you want to go on a vacation and, just go live carefree for about a decade before you have 1.7 children who you put in just a complete decadent amount of activities like soccer, and you expect them to be a champion like a keyboard player, and so you can have the 1.7 kids. This is how you avoid having a normal-sized family. It makes sense. But yeah, of course, I did Catholic marriage prep too, and what mine was, it was a weekend. So, we have this lifelong vocation, and you get a weekend about it. Like, even if they were going to, the church, they might be onto something. We need to prepare people for the sacrament of marriage. It is a serious undertaking. You don't go receive the Eucharist without going through like your second grade catechesis. You have that full second grade year to learn about the real presence. Well, obviously the Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith, and it's like the most important sacrament. It's the Paschal mystery embodied. But it's a lot more simple in the doctrine of the Eucharist. It's less multifaceted than what you have to know to go into marriage and share that sacrament and enjoy the graces from that sacrament. There are a lot more places you can go wrong in the course of like 70 years of marriage than just like going and receiving the Eucharist. So it makes sense that there would be a period of preparation. It just blows the mind. It boggles the mind that like the answer of so many dioceses is like, we'll give them a week. We'll give them a weekend retreat, and we're going to find the wimpiest, most disordered Catholic couple to lead the retreat. And they're not going to talk about anything substantive. What they're going to do is talk about how Jesus loves you for a few hours, and then, they'll be good from there. What could go wrong? That's my experience. My experience, tell me if it matches yours, a very wimpy couple, the wimpiest man on earth with his overbearing wife. Like, so you get this henpecked beta and his overbearing, the kind of woman that has like the raspy voice and is just like naturally loud, that kind of offends that feminine virtue of quietness, which is numbered among the female virtues, that can be led. You get this, it was like an overweight, loud woman and her henpecked husband teaching us and like telling us to hold hands when we argue. I've been married 13 years now. Rebecca's going to kill me when she sees that. We got told to hold hands when we have a disagreement, hold hands and pray. So, you got that really, too?
Yeah, we got that. What it really feels like was that the Archdiocese, understandably so, they're trying to cover their bases and make sure that there's sort of like this blanket understanding of what, like the basic permanence, faithfulness, openness to life. And I think, what was it, the Second Vatican Council or one of the documents in there added for the good of the spouses. But what it felt like is they were appealing to the lowest common denominator. It felt like being in public high school all over again, where it's like they're appealing to kind of like the retard in the back of class, and like, but the people who are actually like interested and want to know, like, okay, what's really gonna like gear me up? What's really gonna prepare me to be ready for this, for marriage? I felt like it was kind of like we were just, I mean, basically ignored. It was, yeah, and then the part too about the man who was leading the retreat. I mean, it was, I don't want to detract, but it was. I mean, it was.
Don't name drop him, but you'll be good just to describe him. He's gonna be watching and be like, "Son of a."
Yeah, I remember him. He was. He actually. So he's telling a story about how his wife. I don't know what it was about. At some point in their marriage, early on in their marriage, his wife said, "You come up these stairs right now. You march up these stairs right now, and you discuss with me this for whatever issue they were talking about. You discuss with me this issue." Otherwise I'm leaving and going to my mother's house. And he says, and he's like, you know what? Just like Jesus died on the cross, I sacrificed myself. I gave myself up and I walked up those stairs. And it's like, okay, that's
disgusting.
That's again where Chesterton, I think I always say this quote, but it's like Chesterton talks about the virtues have run wild and they wreak more havoc than the vices. It's not a virtue to get totally yoked by your wife. And so anyways, he's saying that, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people in this marriage prep Skype weekend thing, 5-hour powwow. And anyway, so he's telling that story as if it's a good thing, and I'm just sitting there thinking, man, like you just got yoked. You just got yoked, bro.
Yeah, would you say that maybe instead of telling that story, he could have been reading? I got a good Pope quote here. From an admonition to all newlyweds in 1941. How about this? O Christian wives and mothers, never be taken off guard by the desire to wield the scepter in the family. Let your scepter, the scepter of love, be that which the apostle of the Gentiles places in your hands, to save yourself through childbearing, if you continue in faith and love and sanctification with sobriety. That I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of every woman is the man. How about that? Or, but in that same moment you found a society. Every family is a society. Every well-ordered society needs a head. Every power of headship comes from God. And so too the family you have founded has a head, invested with authority by God. Authority over her who has been given him as a companion to constitute the nucleus of this family. And over those who with the Lord's blessing will come to swell it and make it happy like young shoots from the bowl of the olive. How about that? What if we talked about, something like male headship? Instead of glorifying these henpecked beta cucks and hearing their dumb stories like, I laid down my life when I let my wife boss me around and threaten to illicitly leave me. You can't just leave somebody. You're not allowed to just separate from bed and board without your bishop's permission as a married person. So he basically gave in to his wife's illicit demand, her illicit ultimatum, that she was going to do something sinful unless he marched up the stairs and obeyed her orders. Would you say that's a good way to get people ready to go into the sacrament of marriage? We're going to flip headship. Now the wife's going to be wielding the scepter of authority over her husband against the tradition and doctrine of the church, and she's going to threaten to leave him without permission from the bishop.
Sure. Yeah. No. And so the other part of diocesan marriage prep is, so you have the weekend retreat, which is diocesan sponsored, and then you meet with your parish, the parish where you're going to meet the pastor there. Our parish priest was a good man. He's a faithful Catholic. Knows church teaching. But part of that is you take this diocesan sponsored survey and then you go through it with your pastor. And it makes me think of one of the questions where we actually got flagged. So you answer, they'll give a statement and then you answer either, agree or disagree. And one of the questions was, the man will make the last. It was something along the lines of male headship, like the man will make the ultimate decisions in the household. And we both, of course, answered like at the end of the day, yes, and we actually got flagged in that, and the priest wanted to address it. He's like, well, what is this? He's like, the answer that they wanted you to say was something along the lines of, we're both going to make the decisions together. And so this is, again, a diocesan-sponsored, diocesan-sponsored survey that they wanted us to take, and we got flagged. We got flagged on a number of questions. So they have the best answer. Your answer was not totally right, or some other options, but that one actually got flagged.
Are you kidding me? Dude, wait.
No.
This deserves a pause for a second. You can't just be like, well, that one got flagged. And I want to hear the rest of yours that got flagged. I want you to finish the sentence.
So
amazing.
My fiance, being a properly ordered woman, was like, well, yeah, I answered it that way and he answered that way because, we've talked about this before, but, we would discuss important issues, but ultimately it's up to the man to make the decision. Just common sense stuff. Again, common sense, natural law. Even the pagans in Brazil who have not received the gospel understand this, that the man ultimately makes the decisions at the end of the day.
That's not just common sense, dude. You're underplaying it. It's supernatural law. It's Ephesians 5. It's 1 Peter 3, 1-7. It's Titus 2:5. It's everywhere. It's revealed to us that the head of the woman is the man. I just read you a Pope quote. It's in Arcanum. It's in Casti Connubii. It's the constant tradition of the church. It's beyond just natural law where we have to figure this out. We have the diocese undermining the doctrine of the church.
Yeah. And my understanding is that they got that survey from, there's some sort of Protestant ministry that typically produces. So it sounds like a number of dioceses. I don't know how it worked, but they pulled the gist of the survey and kind of tried to Catholicize it. And they did a bad job, apparently. So
well, even Protestants believe in male headship because they believe in the Bible, and it's all over the Bible. It's everywhere.
Which of the 40,000?
Well, yeah, sure. It depends who you're asking. I don't know if it's like what Unitarians or there's pretty liberal Protestants out there, but this is a travesty. They are flagging people for upholding church doctrine in their marriage. They're trying, apparently some dioceses are trying to manipulate people away from holding fast to church doctrine. So not only are we training people, we're doing them a disservice. We're untraining them. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I will give credit to our pastor. Our pastor, being a faithful priest, was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. He's like, yeah, that's the right answer. So he understood that the survey was kind of bunk and kind of bogus. So really, it's so much of marriage prep is like, who do you surround yourself? Who are you having those conversations with? I think the diocese, again, well-intentioned or not, assumingly well-intentioned, their programs that they sponsor are kind of, it's mostly claptrap, but it's who, like, do you have faithful Catholic friends? Do you have your parents who you can rely on? Do you have other people? Do you have the good resources that you can turn to? Fulton Sheen, Ripperger has a number. Sensus Fidelium has a number of talks that you can go to. Are you using those sources? And really, it's like my diocese required a 6-month thing, and outside of a couple of meetings with the priests, the silly survey and the complete BS weekend retreat, it's basically been nothing else more than that. So it's pretty pathetic. It's
honestly frightening. What you just told me is frightening. Obviously, the whole set of circumstances where it's this marriage prep in theory that just turns out to be a handful of nothing. It's almost like how the church thinks of like how to attract youth to liturgy, where you have these like detached, distant, maybe bishops who are like, what youth like? They like rock and roll. So what we're going to do? We're going to get together and we're going to have a liturgy with drums, and we'll play a lot of On Eagle's Wings and Pan de Vida, and we'll really spice it up. And the kids are going to love it. And normal kids are like, dude, this music sucks, and I don't want to go to church and listen to this. I could be in my bedroom like listening to actual good rock and roll, not this like hybrid Christian rock nonsense that just it's just cringy. It's obviously just pure cringe. And it's like how they did that so poorly and so fecklessly, and how the psychology is so threadbare. Like, what we're going to do? We're just going to we're going to prepare people for marriage. It's the same thing. There's an analogy there. Like, it's so poorly done. Like, they have this thing. Like, it's admirable to want to attract youth back to Catholicism, but the way you're going about doing it is so bad and pathetic and cringy. It's the same with this. It's admirable to want to prep people for marriage. It's admirable, but the way you're doing it is doing people a disservice, and it's cringy because it's always. I don't even know how they do it, but they always manage to find the most disordered couple to teach the class. Again, the overbearing, bossy, usually overweight wife who's barking at her husband, and he's just like a total cucked wimp that just takes everything, and you can smell it. I can smell couples like that coming. You can. That's what mine was like.
A couple of my other buddies who from the same diocese where we're getting married. I mean, you would have. He said one of the women who was getting married. Had an IUD implant. So she was on contraception, artificial contraception, and so they shopped around. They were shopping around with different priests, and they finally found one who would let them have the implant and get married. But then they gave the talk on NFB. He's like, okay, well, I'll get rid of the implant, but hopefully we don't get pregnant before marriage. So, and then there was it was something like they had them stand up like, why are you getting married? Is it to none of them had to do with holiness. None of them had to do with self-sacrifice. None of them had to do with any of like the support of the spouses, the raising of children. None of them had to do with anything. I was like, oh, well, we want to, we just want to be together and we want to be happy forever and blah, blah, blah. It's like the joy comes, the happiness from marriage comes, the joy comes from doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is helping your spouse get to heaven at the end of the sacrament of marriage, and then intending and hopefully having children someday and raising those children to be saints. So anyways, my point is that my case is not a isolated case in this same diocese. It's you hear it throughout that it's just go back to this word, it's just pathetic. And so the solution is give I think, as someone who's just been through marriage prep, is give Catholics the church's teaching. Give Catholics the church's teaching. I mean, a lot about you spent a huge number of years doing research on how all this has been muddied by certain prelates. I don't know. I mean, what do you think would be like the solution to all this?
Well, I mean, not to be self-promoting, but obviously, as you know, I put out the Catholic marriage class with Rebecca, like Catholic home economics. If they actually did a class like that, with maybe, if they want a couple, if they want laymen teaching it, like whatever, then have an actual, I'm not like a saintly guy or whatever it is, but have an actual committed couple, like a genuinely Catholic couple, teach the church's doctrine first, and then show how that doctrine unfolds in practice. And that's obviously what we did in the Catholic Home Economics course, but that was 30 hours, right? And in each hour that we did a presentation on that was like 3-4 hours of research. So and then building like slides and stuff. So it's a big amount of work to put together. But there's robust content out there, and everybody needs to be taught like that. If everyone were taught in like a real, more intellectual and truly Catholic sense, what to expect in marriage, the doctrines on marriage, what the church teaches, respecting the various aspects of marriage, and then they had that kind of given to them in some kind of format, whatever, PowerPoint, or just presentations with people in person, it would be so much better off. Instead, we waste people's time. That's what makes me mad. Time is valuable. Couples, you're going to take up a weekend of theirs? A weekend. First of all, that's not enough. If you're going to do marriage prep, you need a little bit more time. But then, since you're asking them for this time, you better make it worth their while. You better not be telling me the basic salvation story. Oh, there was this guy named Adam and his wife Eve, and they ate an apple and they fell. And then this divine person, Jesus, was born and saved all of us from the consequences of their sin. Like, do not waste my time. People's time is valuable, and so many Catholic couples I know that have had to go through these Catholic engaged encounters and all that, they bristle because they're dragged out of like their weekend time, which is valuable when you work, and they're taken to this, and there's this sloppy, faithless couple with, that's kind of like sappy and over emotional and talking about holding hands when they argue, which no normal person has ever done. Like it would be like a death grip. Rebecca would be like squeezing my hand to get me or something like that. Like, honey, I just am so happy for you. No normal people do that. But that's the extent of it. They waste our time, and it makes everybody mad. It puts us all off, and there's not enough pushback to that. I don't think it's bad to help prepare people for marriage, to be like, here's the church's doctrine on this. We get it for every other sacrament. You're going to go to your first confession. You have the priest come into your classroom in Catholic school, and he's like, here's the doctrine. You have like a semester preparing before you go to confession. Marriage is a really important sacrament. It's the backbone of society. What happens to the family reverberates to the rest of society. If we just throw people into the sacrament willy-nilly without them having a good understanding of it, of course it's going to break down and lead to dysfunction. So I'm not against preparing people. That's kind of a decent idea. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't mirror the local, like, teen liturgy, where it's just cringy and awful and pushes people away. And that's what they're not getting. How about talk about the headship of the husband? How about talk about the disparate roles in marriage, where that woman has a domestic role linked to child rearing and staying at home and preparing a home and keeping a home, and the husband has a duty, a moral duty to provide. How about that? How about talking about how two-income families are bad and rob societies of mothers? How about that?
Yeah, I know, and knowing the different dioceses, like, they obviously got to get their Skrilla too, right? They have it's just like, the federal government. It's just like more bureaucracy to administrate all these retreats and administrate all these. You have these yuppie recent grads from, fill in the blank Catholic school that are like, oh, hey, we're so happy that you registered for marriage prep. We're helping you, blah blah blah, and it's just like, it's just like, who's paying that person to, like, send that email, and why are we paying that person? Anyway, I ultimately pay that person because I had to pay my fee for the retreat. But I would say of the chief things that I think need to be taught, that you talked about: the headship of the man in the family, the domestic role of women. I think I even find that a lot of faithful Catholics don't even understand what marriage is, and that it's a contract, right? It's just like they part of the weekend marriage prep, I go back to it, but it's like they think they're making, like, such a profound distinction, like, well, there's the different words for love in Greek. It's eros and agape and blah blah blah. Yeah. And so they're just going on and on about love, but they don't understand that marriage is an actual contract. It's you render your duties in marriage out of justice. So the woman playing the role of agrees to raise the children, stay at home, keep the home, and that's your right as the man. That you and then you go and get the check, and then obviously the marital debt. Each party has a right to the marital debt, and I'm sure there's more distinctions within that. But I mean, that's the basic thing that people need to know. But there was no discussion of that at all in marriage prep. There was no discussion at all about justice. There was no discussion at all. I mean, they would talk about, like, things are going to get hard, and you just have to really, like, hold hands and pray through it. Like, it was really, like, on that. It was almost on that level.
Useless. How about, that is an interesting question. How about marital conjugality? Was that touched on? How about the need to, yes, you have a marital debt, and how it's a mortal sin to refuse somebody the marital debt absent really, really compelling circumstances, like health being endangered. Because remember, part of the role of the marital debt is to preserve people against concupiscence. So if somebody is asking for conjugality and you turn them down, the fathers of the church and church tradition is always seen as you putting them in danger of falling into sin, in concupiscence. So it's a really important thing.
And I will say, even being in an engagement, it can be a near occasion of sin. It becomes more tempting, and I know you talked about this too, where the moralists will talk about how it can be more dangerous, and you really have to be on guard against purity in these times. And I think it's negligent. It's very bad of the diocese to make couples wait 6 months when there's no good reason for it. There's no legitimate formation happening there. And forcing couples to be in this state of what's essentially like limbo for no good reason. And St. Paul you talk about, better for you to get married than to burn with lust. So while you have these desires for your spouse, you're waiting 6 months for, again, no good reason to hear from some chap talk about, like, oh, my wife bossed me around and she told me to march up those stairs. It's just like, I don't want to hear that bullshit.
Right. Give us the dope. You're wasting my time. You're wasting my 5 hours on my weekend. Give us the straight dope about marriage, what we need to know to have a successful Christian union. Union of Christians. What are my Christian duties? What are the morals behind the sacrament? What tell us about the sacrament itself. Tell us about the sacramental graces that you get from the unitive act with your spouse. Tell us about anything, but do not just waste our time. And they don't get that. The church doesn't respect our time when they're making us go to these presentations that are pure fluff. And worse, a lot of times, error, heresy, feminism, culture of death, all rolled into one at the local parish hall, which tends to baptize all these bad ideas. Okay, so talk to me about NFP. You guys, they talk to you about NFP?
Oh yeah, they have to talk about NFP. It's like the NFP. I don't know what it is, but the NFP people are really kind of like, they seem really cultish to me. Do you get NFP vibes?
Oh, we're just going to talk about NFP, and then everyone kind of nods in unison, like, yes. Well, this is something we can abuse to avoid children in marriage. And not that there's not a time for NFP. There is. Just it's talked about so much when it's really the exception to the rule. The duration of your marriage should mainly be open to children, and it's only in times of hardship and poverty and things that would give you just cause to try to avoid the chief fruit of marriage, which is bringing into life new children. Only a limited time in your marriage you're going to have just cause to avoid the chief fruit of your entire union.
I don't understand. I mean, this is a question to you, to our audience listening. What is with the NFP cult though? I mean, it tends to be majority women, and it's like they have like some secret. It's really like a weird like Gnostic thing. Where it's like, but it's like Gnosticism, but at the same time they're like they want to preach like, oh, you should know about this and blah blah. It's just like, I don't know what it is. If anybody's able to have a good answer for what the NFP cult is, or to try to explain that. I mean, I know my fiance worked at a Catholic medical apostolate, and there were some other Catholic medical apostolates that were in town where she lived. There, when she was even, not even engaged, not even dating, they were trying to get her to go on NFP and to do all the things that are involved with NFP. It's just like, I don't understand the big push or where that comes from historically in the church. But anyway, 20% of the 5 hours was talking about were spent talking about NFP, and
20% is like an hour out of 5.
About an hour and a half. At one point, the NFP specialist was asked, like, well, what if we're fertile on our wedding night? Like, what do we do? And she basically told them to abstain. So, again, you're appealing to...
Wait. You're pushing past this. She told them to abstain on their wedding night.
She encouraged them
because having a child would be bad? Like, or you could just get pregnant on your wedding night.
Presumably, the couple getting married was not ready to have a child, which is weird to me to begin with, because you're getting married for what reason? It is a primary end of marriage. Anyway, I'm thinking to myself out loud, why am I sitting in this class? I'm getting married with the intention of having Catholic children as soon as possible, as soon as God wills it. We're going to be open to life from the very beginning, and so why do I have to be dragged, raked on the coals, and raked through the coals and just like endure this hour and a half of torture about NFP is so great? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that bullshit. I don't want to hear it. It doesn't apply to me. It may apply to us. Let's say we're trying to get pregnant. Let's say we're trying to conceive down the road, and maybe it's good to learn more about her body and NFP. Maybe down the road we do encounter some sort of just cause to go on NFP. Okay, in that case, I will look into it. We are not going to go on artificial contraception. I promise you that. But maybe down the road then. But why do I have to learn about it now? I don't understand that.
Right. No, it doesn't make any sense. When you're preparing for marriage, you're preparing for the parts of marriage that you know you're going to encounter. You're not preparing for the exceptions.
I'm not preparing for like a serious mental health or a serious physical bodily crisis or a serious financial crisis. I understand that may be the case, but you can't prepare for every exception in life. You have to continue about your life, assuming that things are going to be relatively normal. Obviously, there's ups and downs to life, but you can't assume that it's like, oh, shit is going to hit the fan and I'm going to be like in a just cause to go on contraceptive. It's just like Catholic contraceptive. It's just I don't know. I don't understand it.
It seems like a capitulation by the church. That's what it seems like to me.
That's what it seems
like the church acknowledges that basically all you schmucks out there have a contraceptive mentality. The culture of death has won. The propaganda is out there. Having kids is bad. You don't want to have a big family. So let's use this secret magical Catholic technique called NFP to avoid children and be just like the heathens. That's not how it works. NFP is for just cause, and it's for reasons where you would have to avoid that chief fruit of marriage, not because you want to, because you want to go on more stupid vacations or buy a stupid boat, but because you are sadly unable to responsibly have children at this point. Again, because maybe poverty, maybe medical. If your wife gets pregnant, she might die because of a real medical condition. Those are reasons for NFP. It's not, well, we want to take 3 vacations this year instead of just 2, so we need to have more money so we can indulge in all the things we want. Me. So the Catholic Church is just capitulating on that. We shouldn't trot out these broads and have them giving a presentation for how to avoid children at something in the precursor, in the run-up to entering the institution wherein the chief fruit is children. It's absurd. Beyond that, I smell a little bit of the soft feminism there, where it's like, women, let me tell you about your bodies. They're just so special and magical. It's like,
what is that?
That's what just what I get. That's my sense of it. I don't know.
It is. It's a thing. I don't know what it is. Well, here's the thing. So correct me if I'm wrong too. I know couples who probably could have gone on NFP, right? So I know a mother of many children, beautiful children, and she had 2 miscarriages in a row. She was she was in her mid 40s. She had what I would assume would be just cause. Again, I don't know. I mean, it's up to the individual's conscience. I'm sure, but I think though even Pius X talks about this. Correct me if I'm wrong. You'd probably know, where he talks about even if you have just cause, you should trust in God's will. So you should trust. You should be open to life. You should trust God nonetheless. And so they their medical doctor said, you've had 2 miscarriages. You're probably going to have more. You're in your mid to late 40s. This is not looking good for you. I would recommend that you go on NFP. And she didn't go on NFP. She had her next 2 pregnancies were successful, beautiful children. The one's like 10, the other's is 12 or something like that. Anyway, that's a testament against, even if you have just cause, if you're open to life, and God will reward you in a way. So I really think the whole NFP question, man, I don't know where to go with that. It's nauseating to hear about. Not that I haven't heard about it 100 times before marriage prep anyway, but
right.
If you've been in the Catholic world for more than a week, someone's tried to get you to go on NFP, and I'm a guy. I don't even do NFP. I don't go on NFP. I don't chart. So I don't know what the hell they're trying to tell me about NFP for, but you
go on it. You just in a different way.
Okay, right.
You'll see soon. Anyway, what are the other greatest hits? What else happened?
I mean, those are the greatest hits. I mean, I don't know. I mean, what would you say are like the 3 things that should be? I don't know. I mean, what are the 3 things that a married couple, from your research, do you think needs to cover prior to marriage?
Dude, I mean, there's no question. The roles of the spouses, i.e. male headship and female subordination to the husband, that needs to be set aside. The roles of the spouses in terms of their economic roles versus their role in the heart of the home. So woman being the heart of the home should be in the home and not working outside the home unless the family's gonna starve otherwise. This quote to an address to the family about work in the family, 1945. Companies need to pay men wages with the object of bringing back as well the wife and mother to her proper calling in the home. It's not me. It's the Pope, guys.
Can I pause you on that? Because that is a thing. So my fiance and I have already talked about that, and I'm not making multi-millions a year. Like, she is going to, even without children, not be working, and she's not going to be in the workforce. And it's not me imposing it, though I would otherwise. But she has that natural inclination, and I articulated that, and she was like, "Yeah, that sounds right." So it's because she's a properly ordered woman. She doesn't want to be in the workforce amongst the men. She doesn't want to be going to work for some boss and pulling in a paycheck, right? She's going to be, and I think there's like this fear among like newly married women where it's like, oh, but I'm just going to be so bored. I couldn't handle it. There's plenty of stuff that you can be doing. There's plenty of stuff that you can be preparing for. I've talked to married women. There's tons of skills that you could be learning for.
I don't even get it, dude. You're bored, so you go get a job? Like, I was
Why
so
is that the
bored
default?
that I got
Why is that the
a
default?
job at Arby's. That's never happened. Who wants to? I am bored, so I want to do something. Like, okay, if I'm thinking that, like, yeah, I want to do something. It's never, I could go and get a job. I could go and stick glass into my flesh. It's like, I'm bored, so I want to get a hobby or, like, watch reruns of I Love Lucy or something. It's never, I'm bored, so I got a job wearing a paper hat flipping burgers at Arby's. That's never happened. Feminism has won, and you can tell, because now people are like, well, women are going to be bored if they're home, so obviously they should go get a job doing something even more boring. That doesn't make sense, and no one calls them on this. Like, if I'm bored, I do something fun. I'm not like, hey, it's Saturday and I'm bored. You know what I want to do? I'm going to go into work and just sit there. That doesn't make sense.
You can't serve both God and mammon. I think there's something to be fleshed out in that quote. But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off on your third point. So that's your second. The second point is.
Then third, just what does it look like to run a proper Catholic household? Like, what's it going to look like in the day to day? Yeah. How to set up your house, how to do chores, how to allocate chores, how to set up a kid's room, how to homeschool, how to devise a curriculum, how to all of these things. There should be a segment on those. So just the role of the husband and the wife in those two important facets. So headship, domesticity versus working in the world as a breadwinner, and then just basic home economics. Like, this is what it looks like in practice when you're running a home day to day. This is what you should expect. That could do something. But so those are my three.
No, that's solid.
What about you? I mean, you just went through this. Mine was like 12 years ago or 13.
I mean,
I still am not sure.
I get to see like Rebecca like busting in the door and just like giving you an earful for that one.
She's gonna kill me. Yeah, it's gonna be. You know what? We're gonna go and we're gonna have to hold hands right after this episode.
Dave, get upstairs right now.
We're just gonna hold hands and talk this out, and like I'll have claw marks in my flesh,
dripping blood from your wrist. No, I think the big thing that I find even among faithful Catholics is, what is marriage? What is it? What is marriage? It's a contract. It's an agreement. You do this for me, I do this for you. Am I right? Or
beyond that, it's a covenant, because it's a kinship bond. You're entering into a kinship bond with each other. Adam and Eve, the first marriage was a covenant. You have this kinship blood bond, and then they go eat a meal. Usually the covenants, there's this blood bond, and you eat a meal, just like God making a covenant with Moses, where he sprinkles the blood of, they sprinkle the blood, and then they eat the flesh of the animal sacrifice, and that's your covenant meal. So you're entering into this kinship bond where she's becoming, a one flesh union. So it's really a covenant. It's beyond just a contract.
What would be the distinction? I don't.
Just the closeness and the intimacy of the connection. That would be. It's like it's such a variance of degree. The difference becomes a difference of type.
Sure. I think the other thing too is that people have this expectation, I think, going into marriage, that because the bastardization of the courtship process and the dating process, where it's basically become, again, just like how the church seems to have capitulated in terms of NFP, it seems that Catholics have otherwise capitulated in terms of what are you looking for in courtship? What are you looking for when you're dating? You're looking for a virtuous spouse. And expectations are huge. So I would say, one, what is marriage? Two, what is what are you expecting out of marriage? Like what are you expecting out of the other spouse? If it's this expectation that, oh, everything's gonna be fun, because dating, courtship, the whole process has been like, oh, we go out and drink and we have fun, and we probably shack up and we're probably cohabitating and we're doing this. The expectation is that that's going to continue, and that's not a realistic expectation. I think
the fun ends right away.
So especially especially the first couple months, the old ball and chain. I don't know. I think expectations are a huge thing. So learning more particular to your situation, what are the expectations of each of the spouses? I think that's a big thing. But I don't know. I guess I'll have a more robust opinion after I'm married.
Yeah, no, the first year is a real educational year. You're going to learn all about, how to solve your problems, how that works practically. Really working through whatever issues are there during the period of courtship. This would actually be a good thing for them to talk about in marriage prep. Like, your first year of marriage is going to be a trying year because it's a year where you're blending your lives together. But formerly, your lives were discrete, and now you are becoming one flesh, and your lives are blending together. And there's going to be rough patches that need to get sanded out, and the rough patches in your personality, some of your vices are going to get sanded out so you can live a peaceful domestic life. That's why famously the first year and the early part of marriage is rougher for spouses, because they're getting to know what it's like to live in harmony with another person, which is, of course, something that's only possible through grace. It's you're living with this person, and normally, like, you go live with a guy and a roommate, you're going to squabble about a lot of things. And then, of course, your wife, you're super close. You're sleeping in the same bed. You're doing all of the same stuff usually. It's not just like, oh, honey, I'm going to get married and then I'm going to go do my own stuff. It's like a lot of your errands are going to be together. So it's a fusing of lives. And when you do that, there's going to be, hiccups at first. There are going to be things where your expectations are not met, where her expectations are not met. And you're going to have to work through that. And you're going to have to give yourself. And you're going to have to, on things that are not moral issues, things that are not issues of principle, you're going to have to compromise, and you're going to have to learn to problem solve. And that's all something that could be given in a Catholic marriage class that would be helpful. It wouldn't just be a giant waste of time, like, we're going to go over the basics of the Baltimore Catechism, and to make sure that you even, like, show up to your wedding in, like, a suit, Like, here, this is marriage prep. Don't wear jean shorts to your marriage ceremony. And there's there's a divine person named Jesus, and he loves you. And it's a waste. I don't know, man.
It's a waste. It's a waste. What do you think, if you had to say one thing to Catholic couples who are looking to date or are dating? I'll tell the audience who are listening. Dave and I had a bet that I naively took the bet, and I paid up Dave. I think it was $20.
Oh, wait, did you pay yet? I don't know.
I paid. I bought you a bottle of, like, vodka or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
or Jack Daniels or whatever it was.
Was it the Henny?
Might have been the Henny. That my then girlfriend at the time and I was like, no, we're never gonna fight. Like, it's totally good. But there are, like, these rough patches that you kind of have to go through, and I think the culture, especially the men out there, the culture has kind of talked men out of their instincts and their intuition. If you say something, see something, right? So I work with Michael Vor's Church Militant, and one of the principles of journalism that Michael always talks about is, like, if something makes you, and you have to be kind of in tune with your senses. There is, like, something that makes you go, huh? And it might just be like, huh? Like, what is that? Like, you have to kind of pay attention to that little instinctual, like, that little voice inside your head going, oh, what is that? You have to pay attention to that, because I think I've noticed even in my short time dating and engaged and soon to be married, is that little voice is that little like, huh, like what is that? You have to pay attention, because if you don't pay attention to it on the spot, it's gonna come back up again, and it's gonna come back a little more like, oh crap, I should have handled this earlier. So
for sure, dude. No,
yeah.
On that point, this is not just like Max Douglas talking about. It's not Dave Gordon talking about. Feminists in the 60s and 70s devised a whole campaign, and you see it in American advertising now, Western advertising, to essentially emasculate men. They admit this, and they talk about an entire reordering of roles. And the way they've accomplished that is by stigmatizing like masculine reactions, stigmatizing masculine thought, stigmatizing men having their proper role in headship, men kind of being the leaders of their relationship, men putting their feet down in their relationships when, maybe something's happening that's even small. Oh, your wife is on your phone too much during dinner or something like that. Just don't speak up. Let her do whatever she wants. Let her run amok. Let her walk all over you. And that's been pushed, and it's been stigmatized for men to stand up and be the leaders of their household. Like, I think of like on the Donna Reed show, like Dr. Alex Stone, he would never put up with some of this, or like Ricky Ricardo, or just something that was from a more classic era where men could be men. They would never put up with some of these offenses from their beloved, and they would do it in a nice, kindly way. They would lead their household and be like, we're not going to do that. Even think about the Brady Bunch, like Mike Brady. He would never put up with some nonsense. He would put his hand down. Or on Happy Days, Mr. Cunningham. It's the Homer Simpsonizing of men.
Right. Where Marge is the rational principal, Homer the complete bumbling, moronic, emotional idiot.
But beyond that, it's just we're being trained to never speak up and vindicate our rights. We're being trained to look past some of these smaller female, like, microaggressions, if I could say it, and not speak up and advocate our own interests and be vocal and outspoken leaders. And don't do that, men. That's another one of these things. Like, if something is not sitting right with you, if you feel a little bit slighted in some way, and women should do this too, don't just sit there and take it. You bring it up with your spouse, and especially as the head of the household, you're like, this can't continue. I'm not comfortable with this. This needs to stop. And we're being talked out of our instincts as people. If something's not sitting right with you, there's a reason for it, probably. And there are a lot of people who just let their spouse walk all over them because they will not speak out when they sense some slight injustice. And especially with men, because our whole society is saying that if you don't let women do just whatever they want, like run amok and basically lead you, tell you the what for, be as impolite as hell with impunity, then you are a chauvinist, then you are a bully, then you are a jerk. That is not correct. You don't have to be some stooge for somebody to be a good husband. You can advocate and vindicate your own rights.
Yeah, one of the things that my fiance and I don't know where we're at on time, but one of my closing thoughts is that my fiance and I heard a famous, I don't know about famous, but a well-known priest talk about in his order, one of the rules they have is that if someone has a problem with a perceived fault with another brother, he has to go up to that brother and say like what the perceived fault is. It's like one of the rules of how they order their day-to-day life. One of the, you can call it a rule, but one of the things that I've made clear that I want to do in our engagement and our relationship and our engagement and into our marriage is that if there's, and obviously like people are going to have little foibles where they do things that annoy you, they click a pen, they whatever, like they burn the meat, like the food's a little overcooked. Like you might say something, but it's not like you're not going to go to the mat on something like that. But like if there's a legitimate perceived whatever you call it, like behavior or something that you think needs to be corrected, or something that you think is a fault, or something that you believe like it. And again, as the man, you have the right to determine the cult and the code of your house. How do you worship? How do you act in the house? So if you see something that is not lining up with that, one of the rules that we've talked about, or like one of the rules that we talked about doing, is just like, if you see something about, just let the other person know. I don't know how that's going to play out. I guess we'll see as time goes on. But I feel like it's been a super fruitful thing, and I think it's, again, like, guys want to placate. They'd prefer peace to having the fight. It's like infamous among like kings of the day. Like, let's just have peace at the sake of truth. I think it's better to, every time that we've had like a pretty decent fight, it's always been better that we both like aired our grievances, let the other person know, and then you do it in a loving way, and it's always better after the fact. And again, like something like that, you talk about marriage prep, go back to marriage prep. It's something like that where it's like, it'd be helpful to know how to handle some of these different situations rather than just kind of like trial by fire, or by like, I mean, I've had the fortunate state of life of knowing you and other good, faithful Catholics, and being able to ask questions about these things. But I think that's an important thing for men to be reminded of.
Absolutely. It's okay to fight. Men, you have to fight sometimes. You have to vindicate your rights. Women, you have to fight sometimes. If your husband's mistreating you, you have to, say something which may run the risk of causing a fight. It's okay to fight. That would be a good thing for the church to say. Like, keep it within moderation, keep it not sinful, but arguing is not a sin, and it's something that is very much needed in this fallen world. All right, well, with that, everybody, please subscribe to the channel. Do comment. Max posed some interesting questions earlier. I would like to hear what the audience has to say on that stuff. Give us a thumbs up, and please do stick around, share the channel. We're counting on you guys, this kind of faithful core of followers, to help get the word out about the new channel, and we are going to build it into a community. So I really want to be interacting with people and going live and talking about their questions, talking about their concerns within whatever topic of the day we're covering. Thanks so much, guys. God bless you all, and peace.